Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Veldman Way. Today I have my first job interview after being laid off. It has been exactly 2 weeks since I have been laid off from my job, and today I have an interview. I'm very blessed by the fact that I have an interview because I know a lot of people have been laid off for a very, very long time and haven't even gotten an interview yet. So we'll see how this goes. This company is one that I didn't actually apply to. They had reached out to me on LinkedIn. And you know, it's a recruiting agency, which isn't really something that I wanted to do. I wanted to stay in corporate recruiting, but I had a really good conversation with the guy, and it seems like an interesting opportunity. So he wants me to come in and meet with the president of the company. So that is what I am doing today. So I will keep you guys in the loop on how that goes. And I just want to say real quick before I kind of go into this rest of this video, the amount of outpouring that I've got when I posted that first video from when I got laid off, I have gotten I think I've gotten 400 subscribers from my 2 laid off videos. It doubled my subscriber count on my channel. That I just can't believe it. So I think I'm gonna continue to do these videos because it seems like you guys are enjoying them. And I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers, so I'm almost to the opportunity where I can be monetized, which would be awesome considering I don't have a job and I could really use any kind of income, even if it's $100 a month off of YouTube. That would be great. So keep those subscribers coming. I am going to continue to bring you guys along on my journey of finding a new job and navigating through unemployment. But today is the day that I have a first interview. So we're gonna see how this goes. I squeezed into my suit, which I have not worn a business suit since I worked at the bank, which was 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago. I used to have to wear suits all the time for interviewing when I worked for a bank. But my last 2 jobs I never had to, so other than interviews, I haven't had to wear a suit. Even when I interviewed at PayPal, I didn't need to wear a suit because it was virtual. So I just had I think I had a jacket on, but I was in pajama pants at the bottom. So today is full on. I kind of held my breath putting on my suit pants because I have not worn these in over 5 years, but they fit. They're not the most comfortable, but they fit. And my shoes, all of my nice shoes have been chewed up by my puppy, but I did find one pair that is less chewed up than the others. And the black of my suit, the pants, and it's probably hard to tell on camera, is not the right black. There are different shades of black. I know you men out there are probably saying black is black, but you women out there will agree with me, there's multiple shades of black. So they're slightly different, but it's okay. I'm a little bit of a hot mess today, but we'll see how this interview goes. I am excited, I'm nervous, so I'm gonna bring you guys along with me, and while I'm gonna kind of have you guys in the car with me while I drive, and I'm gonna give you guys an update on kind of how my job search is going over the last 2 weeks. How many jobs have I applied to? How many outreaches have I gotten? Kind of give you an update on where I'm at. And then at the end of this video, I want to talk about interview tips. So I am a recruiter and I interview people for a living, but I hate to be interviewed. I hate interviewing for jobs. And I'm always scared and I feel like I ramble on and on and on and on. So I wanted to give you guys some interview tips about STAR interviews because it seems to be the big thing now that a lot of companies are doing. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about STAR interviews, some of the pros to that interview format, and if you as a candidate, how you can prepare for a interview that is in STAR format, and even if the interview itself isn't in STAR format, how you can kind of get your interview question or answer them in the STAR format and kind of the pros and cons of that. So I'll go into that towards the end of the video after my interview. So let's go, let's head to my interview. Here we go. Sorry if the angle's weird. I am in a rental car. I got in car accident. Someone hit me in the parking lot on Christmas Eve at the grocery store. A great way to start Christmas, and I have no idea, how do I turn these lights on? It's raining. And I have no idea how to use this car. So I think I turned the headlights on. I have no idea. So I wanted to give you guys an update on my job search and how that's going. How do I turn these windshield wipers on? So thrown off. Okay, so how my job search is going. It's not the best. I don't know if my lights are on, so if I get pulled over, I can just tell them, like, I don't know how to use this car. It's not going the best, to be honest. I have applied to 23 positions so far. This position that I'm interviewing for, I didn't really even apply to. I think I mentioned this beginning of the video. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn, and it was actually the day that I got laid off. And it's an agency. I've worked agency before, but when I first got into recruiting, it's not my favorite. It's not my number one choice to do agency, but I haven't done agency in a long time, and so I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about it. It looks like it's more base pay instead of commission based, which I appreciate that more. So we will see. I'm open to all options because, let's be honest, I can't be picky right now. So I've applied to 23 positions, and I have not gotten any interviews. Other than this one, like I said, I didn't apply to it, so I don't know if this isn't included in the 23. So I guess 24 companies. So, and it's been frustrating because I've never been in this situation where I've applied to so many positions and I'm not getting any kind of feedback. When I interviewed for my job prior to PayPal, I worked for Exelon, which is a power company, and I applied, and they reached back to me within like 2 or 3 days after I applied, and I interviewed and I got it. Same with the bank. I think I only applied to like a few companies, and it was very quick. So I've never been in a situation where I've applied to so many positions and I'm not even getting callbacks. And I know it's not because of my resume, and I know it's not because of, that I'm not qualified. I'm probably way overqualified for some of these roles that I'm applying to, because a lot of them say they need someone with 2 to 3 years of recruiting experience, while I have 12. So I'm definitely qualified. I'm very careful about who I apply to. I'm not going to apply to positions that I am not qualified for at all. I think a lot of it's timing, and there's so many recruiters out there right now that are unemployed and that are applying to these positions, that they are just being, they have so many applications to go through. So what I've been doing for roles that I'm really, really interested in, I've been trying to reach out to like either a recruiter or a recruiting manager on LinkedIn and send them my resume directly, which I think I will do a video on that, on how to reach out to recruiters and or hiring managers on LinkedIn effectively. Not that it's been very effective for me right now, but I think it's just because of just the way the market is right now. It is so bad. So bad. I've seen so many recruiters on LinkedIn that have recently been laid off and are in the same boat as me. So I'm not feeling like horrible, like I'm doing something wrong, because I'm not the only one that's in this boat. So if it was a different situation, I would probably start kicking myself a little bit and thinking, like, being down on myself. So for those of you that are going through it, especially if you're in recruiting, like even people that are very, very qualified, not to toot my own horn, but like myself, I have recruiting experience and have worked for some pretty big companies. It's just bad out there. So I am going to have to put this place in my GPS because I don't know how to use the GPS on this car yet. You have to like download some apps and stuff, and ain't nobody got time for that. I only have this car for a few days, hopefully, so I'm not going through all of that. So I'm gonna end this part I'm gonna follow back up with you guys when I get out of the interview and let you know how it goes, and then I'm gonna start talking to you guys about the STAR interview and that process and some tips for acing your STAR interview. All right, so I made it back from my interview. It went very well, actually. I'm actually really surprised by how well it went. I went into it being a little bit nervous just because I haven't interviewed in person at all in about 5 years. All of my interviews since the pandemic obviously have been virtual. So it was nice to get back in an office and meet with people face to face and interview. And the people that I interviewed with were super nice and friendly. It was a very, very laid back interview. It was more like a conversation than an interview. So I came out of it feeling really positive. The company that I interviewed with is a small agency, recruitment agency. And I did some agency recruiting when I first got into recruiting after college. I don't know if that's something that I want to do. I think I'm open to it. Going in before today, I said, I don't know if I want to do agency recruiting. But after meeting with this team, they were great. The company seems really nice. I loved the location. It was only 10 minutes from my house. The people were awesome. And like the office was super cute. It's an old like Victorian house in this beautiful little downtown area that they turned into an office. So very friendly, fun, seems like a fun place to work. So we will see if I get an offer. They said that they were interviewing a few other people. So who knows when I will hear back. And if they do offer it to me, obviously I'll have to take a look at the pros and cons and determine whether or not it's something that I want to pursue further and possibly join their team. But I know a lot of people have said like, oh, just take a job and have that as a job, and then until you find something better. But I don't want to do that. The reason why I don't want to do that is because I know what goes into hiring people as a recruiter myself. It's a long process. And I always felt horrible when I would interview somebody, get them in, and then like a month or two later, they leave. It was like, what a waste of time. And I don't want to do that to these guys that I met with today. Super nice group of people. And I don't want to take a job unless I am 100% sure that this is where I want to be for at least a while. Like it's not just a placeholder until I find something else. So I will keep you guys updated on that process, and if I get any other interviews. I did have another company that's interested in interviewing with me, so I have to fill out another assessment, and then once I fill that out, which I'll do this evening, then they want to interview me. So I do have kind of another interview possibly pending here, depending on how well I do on the assessment. We'll see. But that brings me to what I wanted to talk about, which was the STAR interview questions. When I posted my initial laid off video, I thought that would be the end of it. I didn't think I was going to go into any other videos about being laid off or anything like that. But the amount of subscribers and views, like that initial laid off video that I posted has over 30,000 views. I mean, I literally cannot believe that is the case. And the second one that I posted, obviously has a little less views, but between the two videos, I've gotten over 400 new subscribers. And for a super small YouTube channel like mine, getting that within 2 weeks is doubled my subscriber count. So I am almost at 1,000 subscribers, which is just crazy to think. Like I might get to it by the end of the day tomorrow, which is so great. But a lot of you said in the comments, which I've read all of them, and I appreciate every single one of you for commenting, that you wanted me to continue on documenting my process of being laid off and job hunting and things like that. So I will continue to do that, but also wanted me to include some interview or resume tips, because I am a recruiter. I've been in recruiting for 12 years. And if you haven't seen any of my previous videos about being laid off, I'm putting together a series. This is video number 3 of that series. I will include a link up here that shows the other 2 videos that I posted previously about being laid off. But I wanted to talk to you about interviews. Interviews are so much fun. Kind of, not really. but I interview people for a living, so I am very knowledgeable when it comes to interviews and what to do and what not to do. So I wanted to share a couple of quick little tips about the STAR interview format. So for those of you that do not know what the STAR interview format is, I will tell you that here in a second. I do have some notes, so I will be kind of looking down sometimes because there's a lot that I want to go over with you, and I want to go through it quickly to not waste any of your time and just give you the facts and things that you need to know. So the STAR interview and what it's used for is in more behavioral interview questions. So a lot of the times these questions will start with, tell me about a time, give me an example of, how do you handle this situation, whatever the case may be, more behavioral interview questions. Those questions are different than what you'll get when an interviewer is asking you to just kind of go through your resume and tell about what you did. Usually, and then you're just kind of listing off some of your duties and responsibilities and what you did. But usually in interviews, there is a behavioral interview question part, and they will have pre-written questions that they must ask you, must follow, depending on the company that you interview for. When I worked for Exelon, they gave us very specific questions that the managers had to ask, and they wanted all of the answers to be in the STAR format. So you might interview with a company where they will tell you ahead of time, we want these to be in the STAR format, and you might also interview with a company who doesn't have that expectation. But it is still a good idea to use the STAR format because it will help you answer your questions more effectively in the interview. So what does STAR stand for? Well, here we go. I'm going to tell you. So the S stands for situation. So this is where you are going to set the scene and you're going to give details of your example. T stands for task. And that is where you're going to describe your responsibility, what your responsibility was in this situation. What are you tasked to do? What are you supposed to do to help solve the problem or whatever the case may, whatever the case may be. A stands for action. And action is where you are going to explain exactly what steps you took to help solve the situation. So it might not, and these are only used for like questions that are like issues. It could be, tell us about a time you had this great project, or you went above and beyond on a project, or something like that. So it's not all for negative things. You're not always solving a problem, but wherever your situation is, the A for the action is going to be the specific steps that you took. Now, you keep hearing me kind of emphasize the word you, and the reason for that is because you are interviewing, so you want to make sure that you are pointing out what you did. If you're working in a team and it's a team project, whatever the case may be, that's fine, you can mention that, but make sure you are giving clear examples of exactly what you did, because that's what the interviewer wants to know. They're not interviewing the other people that were working on the project, they are interviewing you, okay? Then the R stands for result. And this is where you get to brag about how awesome you did, how awesome your actions did, and solved the issue or the project or whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that if you have numbers or anything like that that go along with it, that you are including those in this part of answering the question. Before I go into how to prepare for these, I want to give you a couple of examples. So I've written down a few examples of behavioral interview questions and how to answer them in the STAR format. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, I'm going to give you exactly how the answer should be, then I'm going to go back and kind of break it in as far as what was the S, the T, the A, and the R. So question, and this has actually happened to me, so this is exactly how I would answer this question. So tell me about a time that you had to handle a difficult project. So here's my answer. Our IT department was looking to update their current job descriptions and create brand new job descriptions for their team to grow their IT department. My manager asked for me to meet directly with the CIO to go over what job descriptions needed to be updated, and also to meet with him to discuss about what new positions we're creating and create those job descriptions from scratch. I sat down with the CIO to go over the current job descriptions that he had in his database, really revamp them and give them new life, because a lot of them only had maybe 1 or 2 lines, and the qualifications just did not give the candidate a clear understanding as far as what was expected of them for the position. So using some of his technical knowledge, I added some of the HR fluff to make them sound exciting and hopefully appeal to more people. And then for the brand new positions that we were creating, we looked at some of our competitors' job descriptions that were out there in the market and used that to help guide us over what types of, how we wanted to title them and some of the duties and responsibilities to add. So the CIO gave me very specific duties, list of duties and responsibilities, whereas I then used the qualifications, determined how many years would be required for the different levels, added some of the HR fluff to make them sound exciting, and we updated all of the job descriptions under his department. Together we updated over 20 job descriptions and add 5 new roles to his department. These job descriptions helped increase the applicant flow by 20% and not only gave us more applicants to choose from, but more qualified candidates to choose from. The CIO was so impressed by how well I worked with him and how much I improved his job descriptions. He asked for me to recruit for all of his future openings within IT moving forward. So there you go. That's how I would answer that question. Now let's go back and kind of take a look at the STAR. So the S, the situation. The situation was that the IT department was looking to update their current job descriptions and create new roles. The task was that my manager asked me to go and meet directly with the CIO to go over the job descriptions and work with him to update them and create new ones. The action was me actually physically sitting down with the CIO and going over the different positions and how did we go about doing that, the steps that we took. Not only did we sit down together and go over them, but we also looked at other job descriptions from some of our competitors to help guide us through the process and make sure that our job descriptions were appealing to, were just as appealing as some of our competitors out there in the market. And then the result was that we updated over 20 job descriptions in his department and created, I think it was about like 3 to 5 new ones. I don't remember the exact numbers, but for his team, and that he did, because the project went so well, he asked that I now do all of the recruiting for his IT team. He wanted me specifically to recruit for his team. So that kind of gives you an idea as far as how those steps are followed. It was a complete answer. It only took maybe about less than 2 minutes for me to answer that question, and they got exactly what they were looking for: the situation, the task, the action, and the results. I didn't go off on any tangents. I answered the question completely, and I think I answered it pretty well. That's just an example, and you can see so many more examples of STAR interview questions if you just Google it. But I wanted to give you, I also wrote down just a couple of example questions because it's very important that you do your research before you interview and determine kind of, you can look up behavioral questions if you're interviewing for a sales position, an IT position, a recruiting position, a customer service position. There are plenty of specific examples out there if you just Google it. And I would take any of those questions and think of a situation that might answer some of those questions and kind of write it out with the S, the T, the A, the R, and write down the situation, the task, the action, and the result, and just memorize them in practice. So here are a couple more examples of some behavioral questions that would be answered very well with a STAR format. Can you tell me about a time you had to act and there was no formal policy or procedure or how to do so? Was there a time that you had to work with someone with a very different personality than yours, and how did you work through it? Now that's a very popular question. I think a lot of companies ask something very similar to that. So I would definitely have a situation kind of up in your head, like think about that, because usually you're going to have some sort of, conflict resolution question when they're doing behavioral interview questions. Describe a time when you had to manage numerous responsibilities and how did you handle it? So time management, those types of things, usually you're going to be asked those questions. So think about specific examples. Those are just a few. Obviously, like I said, there are many out there, so please definitely Google STAR interview question examples and you will see a ton and it'll make it easy. But for when you're preparing for your own interview, how to prepare, look at the job description. In the job description, it not only gives you the duties and responsibilities, but there's qualifications. And in the duties and responsibilities, there'll be some hidden terms or words that will help you determine maybe what types of questions they're gonna ask you. So in the duties and the responsibilities, if they talk about having to work independently, project management, like, you know, it's very independent work, someone who's detail oriented, you know, they're going to ask you behavioral questions that geared towards those. Or are they saying that you're going to be working as a team, leadership, you know, being able to manage a team, whatever the case may be. Things that they point out in the job description, they're going to ask you about that in the interview. And most likely it's going to be in a form of a behavioral interview question, and the best way to answer that is through the STAR method, so that way you clearly articulate your experience and they get the answers that they're looking for to these questions. You can also use a few examples that could be answered in multiple different questions. So that is something I definitely did. Like when it comes to working with somebody, I used that same, you know, kind of idea in my head, and you could use it for working with a difficult manager or a coworker, or you're working as a team and maybe someone wasn't on board with the team as well. You know, you can use them, try to find examples that could answer multiple different questions, so you're prepared for any question that comes up. Write down the details. So like if you are in a sales position and you have specific numbers that you want to highlight in your interview, write them down and have them in front of you in the interview. I have interviewed many people where they've had notes in front of them, and that is definitely fine. I would rather them have notes and be prepared to give me those numbers than try to remember them on the top of their head and be wrong. So come in prepared. No shame in having notes for, you know, written down in an interview. And then practice. Record yourself answering these questions, or have a friend, you know, or family member interview you, do a mock interview with them, or look at yourself in the mirror and answer them in the mirror. But I think the easiest way is either have someone interview with you or record yourself, because I think sometimes you don't realize, like even when I'm doing these YouTube videos, I'm talking, I end up editing a lot of stuff out because I realized, wow, I already said that 5 times, or, you know, sometimes your nerves just get the best of you. So don't be afraid to like record yourself and watch it back, and that might help you determine, you know, some things that you can maybe cut out and that type of thing. And don't rush. And then also too, if you are in the interview and they ask you for an example and you don't have one, don't feel like you need to just spit something out 2 seconds after they're done. If you need to take a second to think about it, this is what I would do. I'd say, okay, that's great. Can you just give me a second to think of a good example? And then think about it. Like, totally fine. I've done interviews where people have done that. I mean, you don't want to sit there for 5 minutes and think of an example, but if you need maybe 30 seconds, maybe you have a couple of stories in your mind and you want to determine which one answers that question the best, totally take a couple seconds to do that. Like I said, don't make it awkward, but there's no problem in pausing to make sure that you're answering the question completely. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today about the STAR interview process. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and found hopefully gave you a couple of pointers. Hopefully you're going into an interview and you're going to ace that interview using the STAR technique. Like I said multiple times, there is definitely a lot of resources out there that you can use for the STAR method. If you want to take a look at some more example questions and how to answer some of those questions, there's a lot of resources out there. But even if you're not going into a specific interview where they state we want these answers to be in the STAR format, I highly, highly, highly recommend answering all behavioral questions in the STAR format the best that you can. Sorry, the best. I've been talking a lot today with interviewing and now this, so I'm gonna have no voice soon. I highly, highly recommend going into the interview with, utilizing the STAR format. It will only make your interview go smooth and will give you the best shot at getting that job. So I hope that you guys all have a great day. I will see you guys at the next video. I'll give you another update coming soon. I'm going to be posting some other videos for those of you that follow my other content. I'm doing a pantry organization. I'm going to organize my pantry tomorrow, so I'm going to do that tomorrow and get that posted sometime later this week or over the weekend. So don't worry, for those of you that also watch my content for some of my old other stuff that I post, more of that coming here soon. But thank you so much, everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you at the next one.